All right, note to self, Richmond has 7 hills. These things aren't the best on hills.
Well, like Fred Flintstone having to pedal uphill.
Hey everyone, welcome back. We're here with 2 e-scooters. These are the Bolt scooters. We are here in Richmond, Virginia in Oregon Hill, and we just picked these up. And speaking of hills, these are not the best on hills. So in Richmond, you might have a little difficulty getting around if you're gonna go explore Libby Hill or Forest Hill Park. So we're here in Oregon Hill, and we just wanted to give everyone an update. Been talking a lot with Peter about the e-scooter and this emerging risk, which is really here today with a lot of our local governments here in Virginia, with their different trial periods. Some have been successful, some have not been, and really just want to kick things off with Peter to give you guys a little talking points and discussion topics going forward from February, our first video in April, and then as 2020 comes around, sort of what's coming up for those local governments, Peter.
Absolutely, thank you, Marcus. Beautiful day here in Richmond. We are down the home stretch, and in fact today a second vendor is launching here in the city of Richmond officially. So there's 2 vendors now in the Richmond market. There's been a lot of activity this whole year. A lot of localities are addressing the need for creating an ordinance because, again, after January 1st, if a locality does not have a pilot program in place or ordinances that regulate e-scooters to whatever extent, then the vendors can come in 2020 and pretty much have at it. There are certainly continued safety concerns, considerations for our member localities. First and foremost, in your public right-of-way, where are you going to allow them? Streets versus sidewalks. Continue to have some concerns about use on public sidewalks, so that's a huge consideration. Helmets, no helmets, hours of operation, you name it. Geofencing, restricting to certain parts of the community, making sure there's equitable distribution within the community to all neighborhoods, and what does that look like for you as a community. So it's some of the communities are entering second phases of pilot programs. Others, like the city of Richmond, have pretty much, they've adopted their ordinances. They're good to go. They're monitoring them. I've got some other localities that are probably not targeted yet by the companies, but they're getting their ducks in a row. They're getting ordinances right now.
Well, and that's one key piece right there is a lot of the localities, or logically, the localities that are targets are going to be the ones that have universities or colleges within their within their districts.
More densely populated communities. Yeah, absolutely. They're the ones
are prime targets for the e-scooter companies,
and
the
they've
different
had to react, and some with formal agreements right away, some no. Again, looking at allowing them in certain areas and then having to back off and say, it's creating too many conflicts, too much confusion with pedestrians, with the motoring public, and really constantly reevaluating.
Well, and you touched on another thing too. The confusion is a big piece as well, because as different localities create or adopt ordinances or resolutions as far as e-scooters go, and one of the big arguments would first be, when you allow them, how are you going to allow them or regulate them? The other thing, or a part of that, is streets versus sidewalks.
Absolutely.
And that's a big deal when you look at potential liability exposures and sort of the unknown risks associated with that, even though there's certainly defenses such as open and obvious with tripping over scooters, because in the right-of-ways, public right-of-ways, and pedestrians, and the risk there. But the big thing is the confusion with localities offering different ordinances or regulations, and having common people understanding those or actually even paying attention to those. That's not going to happen. It's going to be really hard to regulate or educate the public in each different area as far as what you've adopted versus what the neighbor might have adopted when it comes to streets and sidewalks and different areas to regulate. Because certainly we see the geofencing where they're shaded usually in red on these apps on the mobile platform, but then you can still find scooters in them. So they might be geofenced, but I'm not sure how good the geofencing is as far as keeping the scooters out of certain locations.
Absolutely. Yeah, and liability concerns continue to evolve with this in terms of if there is an accident, who ultimately is liable. If locality knowingly has issues with streets or sidewalks that need repair, there's some implications there.
And really untested with as far as what's a reasonable amount of time to correct those issues now that e-scooters may be operating on those streets, which is a little bit different than your normal buses, trucks, vehicles that are on the roadways.
Absolutely. And in terms of injuries, that's certainly been a reality, unfortunately. And, the majority occur with folks that are riding these the first or second time. They're just not familiar with them. They're all a little different, like we talked about last time with the brakes. In this case, with these Bolt scooters,
the sideways,
your
saddled
stance, the way you place your feet. So they're all a little different, and just urge people to be cautious because, again, majority of limb injuries or head injuries are occurring for unfamiliar, for novice riders. It's not for everybody necessarily. This was certainly a hot topic at the recent VML conference where elected officials got to demonstrate them, and one of the vendors was there to answer questions, and so that was good communication and trying to get everybody again prepared for over the next few months here to either have something in place or be working on it with a pilot program or some level of regulation, because that's certainly better than none. So we're here to answer any questions that our members might have, and certainly happy to assist them in any way we can. So.
And this is right up Peter's alley with his experience with local government planning and budgeting and compliance and finance. So it really hits this intersection where you have, the adoption of a resolution or agreement with the contractual terms with the e-scooter companies, which again don't agree to terms that are adverse to you as a local body. Really work with the e-scooter companies to make sure that you protect your liability and making sure you're not waiving your liability rights or assuming liability for others in those contractual terms. But with Peter, again, with the planning and the budgeting, the finance and the compliance, all those issues are intersect here with these e-scooters, creating a fun new means of transportation for a lot of localities. So a lot of interest, a lot of different e-scooters, they're all around. So have fun, ride safe.